Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you're watching this transmission. It is I, Mike Martins. I got a really important article, and I've been talking about consumer confidence is in a huge decline. It's been in one of the biggest declines since I think it's 1989 or 1985. I gotta double check my sources, but confidence in the consumer market is an all-time low right now, and it's obviously hitting the housing market, of course. And remember, I've been talking with guests on the show and stuff. Affordability is a major issue when it comes, if people cannot, affordability is a major issue, but not obtaining finance. If you can't get finance for something, you just won't get it. That's just plain and simple how it works. And now with Australia, with the stress testing and now the Royal Commission sniffing around, making sure banks aren't screwing around. And there's lots going on, and it's been a roller coaster ride for New South Wales if you're living in Australia. So I got a lot of people watching now from Vancouver, from the UK, so Vancouver, Canada, UK, Toronto, and the whole western seaboard of the United States that's completely bought out. Sydney is following the same symptoms as London with the mass exodus of people. California, 6 million people have left California in the last 4 or 5 years because of the affordability crisis. 6 million have left California, the state, moving to Nevada, moving to other, and then disrupting the housing markets in other cities. And that's what's been happening, guys. And Sydney has been having a major mass exodus. It's so bad that there's so much places for rent coming out of nowhere, and landlords having to drop the prices on their rents to see if they get these places rented out. And too many people got too greedy too fast. And that's what happened in Australia. And that's why a lot of people are feeling the pinch right now. And like I said, if you can't get the financing, it boils down to financing. If you can't get it, then property isn't going to sell, right? Or you won't buy a property. Property professionals in New South Wales and Victoria concerned at falling prices and reduced access to credit. There you go. The downturn in the property market segments is driven by big falls in New South Wales and Victoria, offsetting gains in Queensland, NAB says. Confidence in the housing market is collapsing in Australia's biggest states, and prices will continue to fall for another 2 years, according to a survey of property professionals. Guys, prices need to get in around the 360 to the 540 mark for a house to make it affordable. I know people are laughing at me in the background saying, oh, what the hell are you talking? Well, no one could afford these things. And especially with interest rates going up, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Rates go up, housing prices go down, but then you're borrowing more to service your debt. So, I mean, it's just a back and forth, yin yang. It's just back and forth. So how do you get the perfect loan or the perfect finance or the perfect? It's just something you have to weather out, right? It's the storm, the perfect storm. The NAB Residential Property Index released on Wednesday also recorded a sharp fall in sentiment about the prospects for the market for a second quarter in a row, and it's down 15 points to a 7-year low of 9 points, its first negative read since the mid-2012s. A day after the IMF downgraded its forecast for the Australian economy amid growing fears of U.S.-China trade war, the NAB survey paints a gloomy outlook for the once soaring property market. The fall in sentiment was driven by big falls in New South Wales and Victoria, NAB said, offsetting gains in the only state recording positive outlook in Queensland. Confidence in the market was collapsing. And then once consumer confidence goes out the window, guys, it's over. It's over for retail. It's over for pretty much everything. People are going to start watching what they spend. People are going to start doing layaway when they want to buy a big item. They just save up and buy it. People aren't going to be buying those new cars anymore. They're going to be holding on to their car another 5 more years, which they should have done in the first place. But people always want to impress or one-up their neighbor down the street and look better than their neighbor down the road, right? Confidence in the market was collapsing. NAB said, again, pulled down mainly by the 2 biggest states where property professionals scaled back their outlook for prices. This was especially acute in Victoria, where house prices falls are now tipped to be much bigger. In Victoria, professionals' confidence slipped 24 points to -5, its lowest since 2012, while New South Wales confidence hit a new low for the survey, falling 16 points to -25. NAB's survey concluded that house prices will continue to correct over the next 18 to 24 months. So they're calling it a correction there. That's fine. The Sydney falling around 10% peak through, and Melbourne at 8%. See, with Melbourne, here's the deal. Melbourne, a lot of people bought fresh in Melbourne because a lot of people left Sydney in the last 2, maybe 3 years and raced up to Melbourne to be able to afford to live in a big city, but to be able to afford to get into the property ladder. But those people that bought in the last 2-3 years in Melbourne, they're in a lot of trouble, people. However, NAB said it would not be credit crunch event, leading to a collapse in prices. Overall, we see this as a healthy correction, which will help offset some of the risk in the household sector against a backdrop of relatively healthy economy and labor market, it said. Our central scenario does not include a credit crunch event leading to disorderly falls in house prices. I call bullcrap on some of that. NAB also said the boom in Australian housing sales to foreign investors also run its course. The survey said overseas shares of total sales has fallen to a 7-year low of 8.1 points in the new markets and survey low of 4.1% in established markets. That's very solid right there. Market professionals told the NAB that access to credit was now much more difficult than it had been for years, and many more concerned about the impact of rising interest rates on demand. So Australia needs to raise rates. It has to raise rates. It's going to have to keep up because a lot of people are saying, well, Mike, a lot of emerging markets are crashing right now, and a lot of emerging markets are crashing. Their currencies are crashing. No, they're not. They're just falling to the U.S. dollar. That's all that's happening there. The U.S. dollar is just getting stronger, and it makes every other currency look weaker. On the same point, analysis by the investment bank of UBS on Wednesday questioned whether there was enough credit available to buyers for the housing industry to sell the record 229,000 homes now under construction. So here it is. Questioned whether there was enough credit available to buyers for the housing industry to sell the record 229,000 homes under construction. Under construction. Key word. Support word. Record 229. Okay? That's what's happening here. There's a lot of homes that are going to be jumping on the market. Remember all the photos that was sent to me and I showed you guys on the show on trends in the housing market of all the cranes, all the work cranes littered all over Sydney with all new projects. And by now, you'll never get to own. If you don't get on this housing market, you'll never ever own in your life. Yeah. Remember I was making fun of that? But two other surveys released on Wednesday had more optimistic findings. The Westpac Melbourne Institute survey consumer sentiment index rose. That's bullcrap because Westpac is under investigation for a lot of crap they put on the books. So let's move on. I call bullcrap on that. In another snapshot of the housing market, realestate.com said a demand for housing was down, but dismissed predictions that prices in Sydney and Melbourne could fall by 40 points. Realestate.com, which analyzed more than 80 million property searches between July and September, admitted conditions for sellers in Australia's two most populous cities aren't great, but demand would be enough to prevent a hard landing. The Australian share market was flat on Wednesday lunchtime after hitting a 4-month low on Tuesday. So, yeah, it's not looking good for the people that bought in the last 2 to 3 years if you're living in New South Wales. I'm just putting this out there. I've been warning people. I've been doing this. Again, I keep boasting it because you know why? I deserve the pat on the back because I've worked hard. I've been talking about the housing crisis now. We're going into, next summer will be year 9 that I've been talking about the abnormalities in the housing market. What's with all these empty homes? Why is this happening? Why is our government allowing this? What is going on? They need to prop the market, and it's been an ongoing thing for a long time. And since the 2007-2008 crisis in the U.S., no other country has learned from what happened in the U.S. A lot of cities like Sydney were going into bull markets with their homes, and instead of crashing with the rest of the economic tide that was circulating the globe, cities like Sydney, London, Vancouver, Toronto, Los Angeles, San Francisco have been just going. Los Angeles, San Francisco took a huge hit. Sorry, everything outside of the U.S. basically watched the U.S. collapse, and the rest of the world just kept on going up. Is basically what everything's kept going up. So now with the seeing the people not buying anymore, trade wars with China cannot devalue its currency. I see a lot of market specialists saying that China's purposely devaluing its currency to increase exports. No, they're not, guys. So join me on Mike in the Night for that. We were talking about that. China cannot devalue its currency because it's one of the number one energy eating countries. It requires more energy than anything else, than any other country on the planet, and they cannot afford to buy fuel on a devalued currency because they're just going to pay more for it in the end. Anyways, guys, confidence in New South Wales housing. Let me know what you guys think if you're in Australia. Don't forget to add me to Skype, Mike Martins 1980, if you want to be on our show. Tomorrow night, trends in the housing market, 6:30 p.m. Western Seaboard time. That's Tijuana, Vancouver, Los Angeles time. Mark it on your calendars and join me tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.